pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Rule of minutes, has everybody had an opportunity, get from her? Everybody had an opportunity to look over the minutes. Is there any questions or additions? Second. All those in favor? Okay. Go right on to. Okay, it is wrong. That's what it is. Okay. Let's go right into EP1. Resolution authorizing budgetary modification capital project number 95, Department of Community Development, Tourism and Planning, Public Transit Capital Funds, Mobility Management. What this is that we, the federal government gave us $22,000 that we could use for mobility management back in 22, only to be used if we had an outside vendor, which we did, and it also caused the outside vendor to pay 10%, is the local share, so that was taken care of. But now we've never received the money, so this is basically saying now we can receive the money because we've done our due diligence. So, open for any further discussion?
Well, I'll move it.
Move it, second?
Second.
Okay, anybody have any other questions regarding that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Okay, EP2, I'm handing it over to Noel because it's an appointment position and I'm one of the ones to be appointed.
So EP2 is a resolution appointing members to the Oswego County Soil and Water Conservation Board. We found out there's an error in the resolution, so I'd like to see if we could amend it. The appointment for Linda Lockwood would be expiring 2024, that's correct. Mary Ellen would be 2024, that's correct. But the third, Sandra, her term would be to expire 2026. So I'm looking for the appropriate motion to fix
I'll
that.
make a motion to amend to 2026 for Sandra's term.
Great, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. So that passes. We
Okay.
gotta vote. Okay, all those in favor of the amended resolution?
Amendment.
The amendment of the resolution?
I think you got everybody.
Okay, good.
Any opposed?
Moving on to the resolution as amended. We just put it for discussion or?
Nope. Thank you for serving.
Okay.
I did speak to Joe, just so you know, last week about this, and he's really thrilled with the team that he has on this old range. So we're looking for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You don't have to ask if you.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All righty.
You don't do that too much.
Moving on. We have a bid. Would you like to talk about the hunting and fishing guide bid?
Pretty straightforward. Every 2 or 3 years, we rotate between our visitor guide and our fishing and hunting guide. Fishing and hunting guide is up to change. We change the clothes around, we change the main cover. The only thing that's different this time is the main cover is different like material. It's not like a regular front page magazine where our hopes is that guys that take it out, guys are fishing or hunting or anything like that, they can always throw in their truck, throw in their boat, and it'll last longer. So that's the only thing that's different about it. That's what we thought about.
Is that the one that we won an award for last year?
That's right.
Okay. So,
Well, two years ago, we won it during like the end of COVID,
okay, 2 years.
and then we presented the award last year. Yes, we won it 2 years prior to that.
So we can try for another award?
We hope so.
Okay.
Just like our new website is, we submitted our website through out of New York to see that
Okay.
so that won't be soon, hopefully like next spring, but yeah.
All right. Okay. Is there anything else, Dan, that you'd like to give your report or update on?
Not really.
Nope. Everything else is good? How about the solar? Anything?
I'm just gonna get there in my report, but I can do it now if you want.
Okay. Well, that's why I figured I'm going right down to recording department.
I'm sure. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
What's that? You guys look over. Frank has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Frank.
Just why would there be such a a large discrepancy between, you know, the Cooley Group and Fremont Press. Did they give any, you know, why it would be, you know, such a higher bid than?
It just depends on the product they have. I mean, it's paper, you know, it fluxes everywhere, you know.
I mean, I was just wondering, you know, just wondering why they would be so high. That's all.
Yeah, they're gonna be processed.
Well,
Did they say anything?
paper is unbelievable. You have to look all over the place. The pricing is crazy.
Okay, well, I just, you know, I was just wondering why, that's all.
That's why we put them out to bid.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but, you know, when somebody's that, you know, that far off, you wonder what the difference between theirs and what we're gonna get, you know, why is there a difference? As long as we're gonna get a good quality product, that's all that matters. Okay?
The president has a higher salary.
That's going around.
Well, they may have more workers, and labor is one of the biggest expenses business. Well, we put out
Okay,
about
thank you.
12, 15 people we put it out to, and only 3 even said that they're willing to bid. That says a lot right there. Okay, any other questions for the bid? Okay, Dan, your regular report.
Yeah, solar eclipse. So our eclipse glasses came in. The good news is that by next week for your ledge meeting, we will have 50 of these on your chairs, as well as we are going to make like a small tripod. We are going to get those out before the weekend, and you guys will have them in hand hopefully by next week. I know you have the glasses in hand, but we have the tripods in hand next week. Some of you guys can hand out, and it's going to have every event going on in the county. So if someone were to come here on, well, the hotel they're doing are typically like 3-night stays. So if they come into town, at least they'll have something in their hand of where they can go see it, what they can do. You know, Sunday's a block party here, but someone may want to go up to Selkirk. We are handing out, we had gotten 7,500 glasses. We gave 500 to the Fort, 500 to Selkirk. Chris Waldron from Fulton picked up 500 yesterday. We are, like I said, anyone that wants them, we have them. As far as this building, a lot of the employees have stopped by and said, hey, can I get 10? That's no problem. If you guys think you need more than 50, stop by. We have them down on the 3rd floor. Continue to be strong with the post regard their reaching 425. Coming up in the next few days for the eclipse. You know, every
You can only shut one, so it's gotta be an open meeting.
every 8th day of the month on our Facebook page, as well as our website.
Shut it a little bit.
Like last week was the 8 things to know about the eclipse, you know, when it lasts and stuff. We played around with our sound box on Thursday, you know, so it's gonna be a Facebook Live thing. Those are for the blind who cannot see the eclipse. As the shadow goes over, it does make a very loud vibration.
Okay.
We went to Springfield last weekend, Springfield, Massachusetts, as Oswego, to promote, hand out magazines. We got a lot of good feedback from people that were there. Haven't been there since the 90s, and also it's kind of cool to see a younger crowd say, I'm looking for a trip with, you know, my buddies, shall I say. They're just married, have small kids, they want to get away from it. So pretty much told Oswego's the place to go fishing. Other than that, that's about it.
Now, you said you had glasses for anybody that requested it. Have the towns or villages requested any?
Towns and villages, not so much, but there was an article, I believe, in the paper that said we had them, and we've had constituents come up and ask for. There hasn't been anything extreme, like I need 100 or 200 because they have a big family. It's more like I get 10, 15, so forth. Well, there has been frequent travel.
Yeah, well, I understand that in Texas, there's 2 towns already that have declared a state of emergency for that day, or for even that weekend.
We have been having emergency management meetings, and if we get a day like this, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I know.
But you really can't predict weather in a month in Oswego. It's going to be like,
In a month? How about in 2 days?
Or this afternoon, that was the snow.
but we have talked to meteorologists, and it's an 82% chance that it'll be cloudy that day. Due to past, you know,
Yeah.
how the weather was.
Okay, and the other just went, so go ahead, Paul.
I'm waiting, needs to vote on this. We didn't vote on
Bid?
the bid.
Oh, the bid.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I didn't even think about them. Okay. Once again, there's no questions on the bid. Any other questions? Frank, you're set? Alrighty, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then, thank you.
Why are you on the committee now? You're in the committee.
Well, no, you're the one that had the question.
Actually, the only committee says we're gonna be a no bid.
Well, no, I looked at you to ask if you had
I'm
any
just teasing.
questions.
I'm just teasing you.
That's okay, Frank. I love it. I love the tease. If you just tease, I know you'd be mad at me.
That's what makes the meetings.
Oh, good.
Have you, talked to, any of the hotel owners, or have they had the uptick? Do you have a sense of how many people are gonna be in town?
I think the hotels aren't really gonna help. I mean, if they're 80, I mean, right now they're about 80% booked, but I think it could be a huge influx of anyone that's from the central New York area that wants to come up. And, it's funny, I was talking to a meteorologist from the college, and he said he couldn't wake up that day and decide whether to drive 5 hours to Ohio or 5 hours north. I mean, he's just looking for good weather to see it.
Oh.
So, I mean, it really depends on the weather, and it depends on how in-depth these people are gung-ho about seeing it.
Yeah. The transient traffic is probably going to be higher than hotel. I had a brief meeting yesterday with some of the folks from emergency management who are part of this planning group, trying to get a sense of the people. And they said they've been told by other communities that have been through this that to expect that your population will at least double that day in your county. Talking of Legislator Karasik, who I think grew up in Indiana, he went, when he was younger, they had quite, this town was 8,000 people, more than 80,000 up there. So there's no way really to predict this, but we've got to be planning for large influx of people over a brief, a slower trickle in, and then one mass leaving after it's
I
done,
mean,
which is where you're going to get your roads.
yeah, I'll come early, leave late, because, you know, you really just, what they're saying too is it could be like Saturday Night Harbor Fest throughout the city here. I mean, 120,000, 130,000, but it really depends on the weather.
You'll still have effect, even if you can't
It
completely
will
see it.
still go dark for 3.5 minutes and then drop 10 degrees.
Yeah, and so, and I also understand, I know most of the schools are going half day, and I've heard that they're starting to think about a full day off.
Yeah, well, some of the schools, because of the weather, sure haven't used their
Snow days.
so
Yeah.
a lot of them are thinking about that.
So Eclipse Day now.
It could
Yeah,
be.
and Eclipse Day.
Yeah.
Well, the next one's what, 400 years,
Yeah.
give or take, 10.
On another subject, have you been brought up to speed on, from the state, what's going to be happening up at Selkirk Park in the course of the next 2 years? Have they contacted you?
Not really, no, not yet.
I got a phone call. There's some major renovation, $9 million worth of renovations are going to go over the course of the next 2 years. This year there'll be camping, but 2024, 2025 there'll be no camping because they'll have that all ripped up. So I'll just give you a forewarning, you may want to look out on the radar for that.
And I think you asked me, I don't know if you got my email about, you asked about Sandy Pond or Sandy Isle.
Yeah, I asked
Asked
them
will not be open there that day and everything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you may want to just look into that.
Sure.
Any other questions for tourism? Yes, Craig.
For soil and water, I just, has there been any more discussion on, what they plan on doing over at Lake Neowana with, the chemicals that they plan on putting in, that you're looking to put in there? No?
Soil and water.
Soil and water would be,
So what I hear, okay.
No, so Joe, you have to call Joe.
yeah,
I mean, I can look into it.
Yeah, because
would be tourism.
it's something that, you know, soil and water didn't want to get on board with it, DEC didn't want to get on board with it. And it's something that's going to affect both, you know,
Yep.
Granby as well as Fulton, and with it being a spring-fed lake and it has a creek that comes off it, that's going to affect the chemicals go down the creek and where it feeds into, which is into the Oswego River. So, I mean, it's not something that's easily that you can do. And
There's a lot of different groups, is the
Well,
problem.
but my problem with the existing group is that I asked for the list of their 20-year recipients of this process, because I wanted to see what it would have, what the effects had on, you know, the ecosystem and human life and everything. And they wouldn't give it to me. All they would give me was the ones they were working on in the past 3 years. They refused to give it to me. So I don't think it's a good thing when they're not willing to give you the information from 20 years ago. It may cost everybody, you know, and with taxpayers everywhere, that it's going to cost more and more to keep it going, but what is it doing? What
I
we
know
really
Joe
need
is
to know.
involved in that. That's something that we can contact Joe and get a little bit better of a report on.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to planning and community development update.
Sure. So, the legislature contracted with a new grant writer, and I want to just kind of give a quick report back on that. They have reached out to us a number of times already. They brought us 2 or 3 open grant opportunities. They sent out a couple really, I think, well-written summaries of who's eligible and opportunities and maybe where we could look within our community to do that. I also understand they're going to be putting together a plan to meet with our county as well. So quick update on that. They've hit the ground running, and I've been very impressed with that communication so far. The number one best, and I don't know if Austin talk about this, but the Restore New York grant was the one that they approached me about. It is a very unique funding opportunity. So I'll give a little to Austin to talk about that, but that was one of the ones that they highlighted that should be working. Now, the county can apply for that. It needs to be one of our municipalities on behalf of a project. But it is one of the only ways that you can fund certain projects in the state. So I think it'd be a really cool opportunity. So if you're interested, I can forward the summary from our grant writers, G&G Municipal Consulting, about the Restore New York program. I'd be happy to talk to them about it as well.
That makes me feel good that we chose them because he seemed to be very, very excited about this whole thing, and that's half of it is getting the motivation going, and I think he sounded like a real...
Yeah, they were here in town on Friday. I got a chance to meet with them, so that's good. So that's exciting. The CFAs will be opening here shortly, and again, that's another way that the state moves their money into our communities. It's something that I think we're going to talk about actively about how we can best utilize state funds. But again, I'll be more of that to Austin. We are actively working with our communities right now. I've probably spent, I spoke with 5 different towns and villages last week alone, just talking about planning, comprehensive planning, how are they preparing for planning, where are they going, infrastructure needs, analysis, housing, all the things that we've been talking about. I've never experienced, and I don't know if the county has before me in my time, but the towns and villages are very interesting in having a relationship to at least, use our expertise. We've got, 70 years of experience in our planners downstairs, and the towns and villages, many of them have boards that are put together. There's somewhat high turnover rate. There's not always the most experience in some of the boards, and so for them to be able to tap in to understand what am I looking at, what am I concerned about, what could a potential developer be looking to take advantage of our community because we're not prepared, we don't have the right zoning and the right language. So we've got some great opportunities to talk to them. Legislature passed an update to the 239 review a couple months ago, and we are going to put together a virtual meeting with towns, villages, planning boards, anyone who's interested, but we're going to target towns and village attorneys, planning boards, and councils to give them just an update on what does that mean, how does it affect them. We're also going to use it as a relationship build. We're going to start to put together that communication network so that if they've got a project coming down the road, they aren't necessarily required to tell the county, right? We have review only, recommendation only. We don't have the ability to say you can or can't do this, but we want to be in conversation. And it's also helpful for us to know what's going on in our community, especially when there's grant opportunities for us to be able to come alongside them and say, hey, here's a cool opportunity for you to work. So that relationship is being built, I think, now more than ever, and people are really, I think, open to that conversation. Maybe they hadn't been in the past. So,
I think it's a great idea. You put your hand out and said, come on, let's work together. It's great.
Okay. I don't know if there's any other questions, but leave the transportation stuff. I'm going on with that, but I'll leave that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Ben?
Yeah, what do you know about this priority housing care?
So it's a great question. I'll leave a little of that to Austin as well. We had a lot of conversation about this. Essentially what it is a certification or a title that you can get with the state. We're still working on what it means and how you get it. They have put out a pretty easy bar of entry, to be totally honest. We had a meeting with the county planning chairs across the whole state about a week and a half ago. I sat in on, and there's some concern about what that could mean. Right now, it's a pretty easy thing to get. It's really not that hard. Most communities probably could get it. The real question is what's the look like down the road? What types of things do you need to do to continue to keep that title in the state? There is, I would say, inarguable that the state is going to use it for preferential treatment of communities building their grants. They've said as much. They haven't said exactly what it means, but it will be two communities have the exact same project, and one has the housing designation from the state and the other doesn't. They will prefer the one housing designation. Currently, we have one community. The Village of Pulaski is the only community in Oswego County, Central New York.
All Central New York.
Central New York. So, what does it mean we don't know it? And what does the requirements look like 3 years from now? We don't know that. There's obviously some concern with a lot of the planner directors across this state about what the state could require to keep that designation once you put your foot in the door.
That's what I was wondering, if this is the one where we believe the governor wants to do low-income housing.
They don't call it that now, Mel. Don't use that term.
Okay,
Don't
well,
use that term.
okay, so what term would you like me to use?
They use it as mixed income.
Oh, mixed income, okay.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing,
Please,
okay.
please.
I could add a little bit on that, just because I asked the question because, the state had said, hey, this is going to be sort of a carrot out there to make you priority for certain state programs. One of them is DRI, New York Forward, the other one's Restore New York. They said specifically those programs, and I think there'll be some other ones as well, but I'd asked the question, is this going to impact communities for like CFA, like a manufacturing project enters? And they said, absolutely not. It's not going to have anything to do with that, so they're not going to say you have to be a housing community to get any type of grant funding, but it is going to be specific to certain funds, and Restore New York was mentioned in particular, and the DRI New York Forward was also mentioned. So just something to be aware of on that, and there's two ways that communities could qualify. One is projects that they've done in the last few years. If they added a certain amount of percentage of housing to increase their housing stock, you could automatically kind of get the certification that way, and then the other is by resolution you can commit to adding housing over the next several years. You could get it that way as well. So even though Pulaski is the only community in Central New York that has gotten it so far, I anticipate over the next probably 6 months a flurry are going to do it because they're going to go after and say, hey, we don't want to be left out for potential funding, and there's probably a lot of communities that are actually eligible now, they just didn't actually apply for it. And so I think we'll see communities apply for it that would be eligible right now.
To be clear, as of right now, it does not include any sort of requirement for working family housing.
No.
Oh, nice.
Just as housing.
Just housing.
Now, the term the beginning term that you used, what was that working? What was that term? Working?
Working family.
Okay.
Anyway, so I hope that helps.
Euphemism, okay?
Well, I like that term, but that isn't what's going to happen.
Hence the
Now that's
concern.
tape. Yeah, that's on the tape. Yeah.
Yeah, hence the concern.
That's right. And I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Okay. Any other questions to Tim? Oh, I'm sorry.
Where's the gun guy? Yeah. Thanks, Heather. You hit it buzzer.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead.
Austin, do you know if the two projects recently awarded at Hastings and Cicero, if there's affordable housing requirements to those projects?
No, because that's already been awarded, so I think if that had been the next round, I think that probably wouldn't have been considered unless there was, I wouldn't say affordable housing component, but if there was a housing component to it. Like I said, it's too early for us to know what this really means. I mean, conversations I've had, they said, listen, pro-housing, we don't care what kind of housing it is. It could be single-family housing, could be this, whatever, we just want to see you at housing. So, there may be on the Brewerton Onondaga County side a component that is housing related to it, but I believe for the projects that were submitted for Oswego County, there were not.
I heard unofficially there was.
So one other thing though is that is just a plan. They're actually going to get we call this another bite at the apple, but they're going to do what's called a call for projects later this year, where they're going to say, hey, the projects that were submitted were great, we like that, and that's the reason you guys were awarded, but we want to see if anything else came about now. So there could be a different mix of projects. The same thing happened in Phoenix when they won their New York Forward. Same thing happened in Fulton when they got the DRI. Same thing happened in Oswego when they got the DRI. Other projects have a chance to come out after the award is made.
Thanks.
Roy, go on. It seemed related.
Don't kid yourself. Hastings and Cicero was in the meeting with the governor. The governor presented them, I think, $2 million each for upgrades to the river, the lakefront. And then behind closed doors, she said, now you develop a resolution to put 20% up for housing into your program. So the carrot has already been bit. Whether that happens or not, but that makes sense that if you don't, she's going to come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get that grant. You didn't get that grant. Just saying.
So if I could, one of the things that we're looking at the county too is talk about a little bit is this idea of a housing study. We've had conversations with the IDA, a partner with that to do this. We talked a little about it last month. I think we're going to hopefully come to you with a plan on what that would look like for next month. So keep an ear out, keep an eye out. I think it's something that we need to do. Central New York, through New York State and HCR, are putting together their own regional housing study. As of right now, we don't know that any Oswego County nonprofit, employee, stakeholder has been interviewed for that study, which is a little concerning. We don't know necessarily where they stand at this point, but our thought is it would be beneficial to us to have our own commission study, so we're not just taking somebody else's word for it. So that's something we're working to do, and how else special more on that.
Okay, that's a question.
Yes.
This is for Austin or Tim. Have you, in reviewing the governor's proposals and these new guidelines, come across anything that would indicate that if a community can demonstrate that it already has a certain percentage of affordable housing, that it is not subject to this building new?
I haven't seen anything like that.
It would seem to discriminate against communities that have already done it.
No, I believe the language has a look-back period that would allow you to qualify, and it does not specifically outline anything having to do with low-income or working family or whatever the correct phrasing is currently. They're very much right now just pitching housing, we get housing. They're not saying what kind, although I will say that the grant programs that cover housing, there is a far stronger chance of getting funded with working family housing than with market rate. In fact, I believe that outside of the New York, DRI, and New York Forward, there are really no other programs that would allow for market rate housing to be built.
Yeah, a lot of the programs, just even for like the mixed-use projects, the state funding only covers sort of the commercial aspect of the project, not the residential for market rates. So while that could help subsidize that portion, it won't help at all on market rate.
And the problem is, with Micron coming in, it's the market rate housing we need.
Yeah.
I'll just say one reason that the IDA is also very interested in this housing study is if you look at what's gone on in Onondaga County is looking and saying, hey, listen, we know that we want certain kinds of housing to happen here, and we know that there aren't state programs to help support it. So let's look at trying to, how can we help to support these projects to make them happen? They understand that once Micron's here, things are rolling, the ball's rolling on its own. These things may take care of themselves, but right now that's not happening. And if they want to have the housing ready for that, they need to look at what can they do to help make that happen, justify it.
Roy, if you're on the same subject, go ahead.
Well, I got about 4 different questions, go ahead. It entails the whole thing, but about the affordable housing and everything else that's going on.
Okay, well, I was just going to ask Tim about the HUD information that just came out, that new HUD is basically on hold.
So, yeah, I can give a little update on that. As you all know, HUD, our county HUD office does report EPP, and I had a good conversation with our HUD director just to make sure I was knowledgeable of what I'm going to share with you. So we got word on Friday from New York State. Let me give you a quick background because it's important. So Oswego County HUD is funded through HCR, which is a New York State program. New York State gets the funding directly from the federal government for the program. City of Oswego and the City of Fulton's HUD program are funded directly through the federal government. Okay, so that's really important for this conversation. So Oswego County got word on Friday that New York State was freezing the program. What that means is that anyone who's currently on our program is fine. There's no effect to anyone who's currently on there. But if someone were to some pass away or to no longer need the program or be removed from the program, typically our process would be we would take that voucher, called a voucher, we take that voucher and we go get the next person on the waiting list. And that person would then be able to go to the program, they get updated, and they would get the voucher and they could use it to live somewhere. New York State is saying that we can't do that. And as of immediately, this was on Friday. So going forward, until further notice, we cannot fill our vouchers as they drop off. So that there's some concern with that, obviously, right? Now, we are funded. Our program is funded based on each voucher we have filled. So just because we have a voucher, we don't get paid. We only get paid if someone's in a home, in the voucher. So there could be some financial costs. The good news is that because we're a bit proactive, we had 17 families that were signed up.
Sorry. Bring them everywhere.
So we have 17 families that are signed up currently. What we are concerned with, these folks have gone through the work, they've done the process, they've done everything they need to do. They're just waiting for us to give them a voucher that opens up. Thankfully, New York State yesterday told us we can still use those 17. About on average, we lose 6 people from our program each month, which means we fill 6 vouchers for our program. So our hope is that since we've got those 17 kind of in the bank, we lose on average about 6. We probably got about 3 months before we are even affected. But what it does mean is we're not going to be working through our waiting list really at all. And probably they believe this could be a number of months. New York State has said that they do not have the funds available for housing in this program unless the federal government gives them more. There's a conversation on why that is. I'll leave that up to a little imagination. But they are saying that the cost of rents have gone so high throughout the state that they don't have enough money for the program. They're freezing it. We're hearing that what that could mean to us is even when they unfreeze, they may, so we have 490 vouchers currently. Over the next 8 months, we could get down to, say, 460 that are filled. There's a belief that they're going to cut off our limit at whatever we're at with attrition. And our new total will be 460. Again, making the numbers, we don't know when the program goes through. But there has been some word from the state that they're looking to do that. So there could be some long-term effect to our program if that were to happen. I don't think, again, you will hear too much over the next couple months. If this gets cleared up, it seems like it might be a federal, New York State kind of a little bit of battle. They want more money for housing. Federal government's not getting into it. But to be very clear, this does not affect either the city or the Oswego or both. Their programs are continuing and fails. So that's a good summary.
Right. Okay. There's a lot of different topics that have been covered so far. Okay, but and just so that you know, and I've come out wholeheartedly that I'm not in favor of the whatever you call it, mixed income, affordable housing, whatever you want to call it. Okay, market rate houses. What's going on the outside of Phoenix? Just as you're coming into Phoenix, on the left-hand side of the road, where they cleared it all.
Oh, it's just going to be some more. It's a very narrow strip. It isn't going to be housing or
no,
that.
It's not going to be able to be. All right.
No.
But yes, everybody wants housing. We want market housing. But the price of market housing, how many times has it been in the news? People can't afford the new houses. People can't afford the rent. Okay, so what the governor is throwing out there, just like you said, Paul, that's what you knew it as soon as she said it, what she was doing. She's going to hold you hostage until and there's a lot, and I'm not sorry to say this, but I hate saying it, but there are people out there that are going to jump on board getting that money and getting that housing and not seeing what it's going to do down the road to them and everything around them, okay? And I just sad that it happened, but there's got to be a different way around it, and you've still got to be able to work forward, get marketplace housing in your area. I'd love to see in the Nestle site, I'd love to see maybe 30 or 40, houses down there, or condos like they got up in Radisson, okay? They're property that's single family owned. We don't want rentals. But is it going to happen? I don't know. But the rebuild New York.
Restore New York.
All right. Does that have to be brick and mortar, or can that be anything?
Has to be brick and mortar.
Has to be. Right.
And it's only the redevelopment of a vacant or mostly vacant underutilized site. So it can't be something that somebody's already in and you're just going to improve it. It has to be a property that's vacant. currently to.
I was looking at the Raleigh Beach, Sharps Pond area where it's, a pond where you could, rebuild it and put it back to what it used to be, which is a very usable site by everybody in the neighborhood. But there's a lot of things that, Tim and they brought up. We got to watch out for, because you got to make sure that your boards and towns and councils are all on board with, don't say the state says you have to do this, because it's not. You don't hit. I love it when somebody says, well, the state said so, and I say, well, no, they didn't, because I checked with the state. So just be on board with and I'm not against housing, as long as it's single family, and that's what everybody in this neighborhood wants, because it raises the assessed values. Everybody's happy with it. You got taxpayers. We don't want something that's going to put a strain on our public safety all the way around, and that's the whole county. Not just, the city of Fulton or Oswego or Pulaski, it's the whole county. We suffer because what happens is it puts a strain on DSS, puts a strain on, transportation. And so, because everybody says, well, they don't need parking because they're going to use public transportation. Well, we only have so much. Where are we going to send them to? Because we don't have the jobs here. Now, everybody's talking about Micron coming. Well, I know I won't be alive when it gets here, but the thing is, those people are not going to take public transportation to get to work. They need a single-family home. And that's what you guys in the outlying areas, I've got City of Fulton, I've only got one little spot that could be developed. The rest of you guys have got areas that you could put single-family homes in. And you're in line now over there.
Oh, I know, big time.
And that's what we got to look at, and that's what we got to push for. Don't be pushing for, don't say yes to anything that says, whatever they want to call it, whatever name they want to put on it. If they're putting an apartment house there, it's not going to be something that is going to make you look happy later. Thank you very much.
Well,
In theory, the money that the governor's given away to the towns, would that be a reason why you've got the HUD funding shut down? Rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak?
I don't know enough about where their funding source comes from. My understanding is that the federal government gives them this money specifically for housing for this program for HCR. I don't know if they're using it somewhere else. Good question.
That's it.
it's a good answer. So,
Veronica and I were just talking, she brought something to my attention. Have you heard any indication that this is related to the rental supplement program at DSS? Yesterday, we just voted to accept close to $500,000 to help people with meet their rental needs. And if the state is putting this kind of money into that program, is that a reason why they don't have the money for the HUD program?
I believe it's separately funded. I don't know how to look at that. I'm pretty sure it comes from a different source of funds.
Because DSS predicted that rental program would lead to a shutdown.
Yeah.
interesting.
It's possible.
Another good question.
Got my DSS proof.
Any other
To be
questions?
clear, the state is saying it's due to rising rent. That's the response.
Well, I hear rent's very high in New York City. Anyways, any other questions for planning? No? Want to go right into transportation?
Good morning.
Morning.
My posse's around, so if you guys can just stay quiet.
Heather has lots to report.
Yes. And if you'd like to learn more, you can come to TAC today. We feed you. It's at Steamers at 12. But I wanted to provide you guys some ridership numbers. So when you guys get this paper, you guys will see that there's 3 columns on here, one for 22, 23, and 24. So you can see how the numbers have been trending. But if we take a look at our fixed route, in 2022 we had roughly about 1,900 riders. We're over 3,000 now. Demand response has increased as well from about 4,000 to 5,000. And overall, we see a 17% increase from last year to this year in both fixed route and demand response services. We did revise 2 of our fixed routes. So we revised OPT 12. That's the route that goes into the Central Square area. That was revised October of 22. And then we most recently revised OPT 14, which is a route that runs up into the Pulaski area. And that is where we added Selkirk Landing onto that route. And so in a short period of time, we've seen a 44% increase on OPT 12 and a 29% increase on OPT 14 after we made those route revisions. And so with the new software that we've adopted, we hope to continue revising and improving the fixed routes so we can increase that ridership. But I wanted to provide you guys the data so you can see, we're not up to pre-pandemic numbers, but we're trending in the right direction with our ridership. The state gives us operating assistance based on our ridership, so it's a good thing, more operating assistance. Our vendor, he's 100%, OCOs, their dispatch is at 100%, they have 100% with their auto technicians, and we are only down 2 full-time drivers right now, which that's not as bad as it sounds. It's usually a lot more than that, so we're continuing to fill those roles with the whole operation.
Better than it's been, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you're still doing the schooling for drivers?
Yes, and Rachel can talk about the cohort.
We're actually right now planning, there's a CDLB and A class starting with BOCES that we're partnering with some local businesses in May. But then we've also had a conversation of doing another school bus cohort training program with BOCES over the summer. So they're coming. There is currently a class going on as well.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so you guys have the numbers. You guys have questions on the ridership numbers?
Yeah. Will you have, at some point, the ability to decipher who's riding? And what I mean by who's riding, we have X percentage riding to work every day. We got X percentage for medical transportation. We have X percentage going to social services. Are there meaningful, I would think there's meaningful categories that at some point we could categorize these riders so that we know we're helping people get to work. We're just not shifting people around that aren't working, just going for a ride.
I love this question. Yes, the answer is yes. So with our new software, I can go in there and pull reports whenever I need to, and I'll be able to see exactly where people are being picked up and where people are being dropped off. And that's for both our fixed routes and our demand response. Because the demand response trips are pre-booked, there's a lot extra data that we can collect with those riders for trip reasons in particular, but also age demographics, and we can also find out pockets of where people, where we need to expand those routes. So yes, we will have the data, and we currently do have data with our Rights to Recovery program, and that data will be provided at TAP today, but we can actually see the breakdown. January and February, they've been doing over 1,000 trips with that program a month, and over 50% of those are for employment-related trips.
That's great.
Yes, so we can tell that there's a huge correlation with people in recovery and getting back to work.
Good.
And she has that data right now.
Good.
Yes.
And that's where this new software comes into effect, that we're going to be able to get really good data and to be able to pinpoint.
Yeah, on the bus driver thing, I heard Centro is advertising on the radio this morning for hiring bus drivers. They say, don't have your CDL, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it.
Been doing it for a week. If we don't have your permit, we'll help you with that too.
Yeah. And I did hear from BOCES that they're putting together a plan to try to buy an 18-wheeler so they can train on it.
They already did?
Pardon me? They already bought it.
Ryan should be at TAP today.
Yeah, he sent me I'll have to look at my message again. He sent me a message about somehow supporting that. Okay.
We're going to start to see that more businesses take people from zero to permit. A lot of times in the past, they would say, hey, come to us with your permit already. And that was challenging for people because there's costs involved in getting the permit. So now you have businesses and organizations saying, well, we'll get you the permit as well, which is gonna help with that. Here's our new Ride the Route flyer. So we're bringing back our Ride the Route class this year. We did train 25 people last year. We do take them on both the Centro and the Oswego public transit buses. We teach them how to transfer buses. If any of you are interested in coming to this, please let me know. Wear comfortable shoes because we do walk to a bus stop. But we will bring this back. We did train 44% of the registrants last year that took the class were seniors and or people with disabilities. So we're excited to bring that back this year and continue to train people how to use the fixed route services.
That's always been a challenge, is people saying, I don't understand the schedule, I don't understand how to do it. So that's excellent, thank you.
Well, and this is always going to be important to do because even with the app, people who can't figure out how to use apps or whatever are going to need a way to be able to get on and figure it out.
And we'll do two. We're doing one in Fulton and one up in Pulaski. So if somebody wants to take both classes, they'll get a chance to do two different versions of a route. You guys will also see, this is the new access flyer. This is not live. We do have a brochure coming once it's officially ready to go. The brochure will be a bifold so that we can blow up the print super large for people to be able to read. But Access Oswego County is a merger between our current access service and Sarah Sunday's curb to curb for senior service. And so by merging our contracts together and just having one program, we were able to expand the hours of the service and the days of the week for the service. And Office for the Aging typically would spend about $100,000 on their contract. This year, they don't have to spend any money on that contract and can have the same level of service. So access is going to be available Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. for every resident in the county. Doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter their income, there's no application required for the service. This is another version of a public transit service that is made for a rural community. And so what will happen is somebody will reserve the bus will pick them up from home, and they can go anywhere inside of the county fare free. So thanks to the donations from the Alzheimer's Association, the first 66 to 133,000 trips are going to be covered through that donation funding for the fare requirement. After that, we have STOA, which will be our funding source for this program along with CARES funding, but we always will use our STOA first. The state gives us $1.15 every mile that we drive and 68 cents per rider. So the more riders that we have, the more operating assistance that we will get. But this is going to open up a lot of opportunities because this service can also be used as a first mile, last mile connection, which means if somebody lives in a corner pocket of our community, they can reserve this bus, hop on it, they don't have to worry about the cost. That bus can take them to a Centro bus in Fulton or Oswego that can take them across county lines to get where they need to go. So it's going to open up access for people to get outside of the county, but also to stay in the county. And they could use this service for a multitude of things. Medical appointments, grocery shopping, connections for employment. It's going to open up a lot of access for us. I can tell you that we were spending more money counting the fares than we were actually collecting the fares. So it's more affordable to go fare free.
Having it more days, that's unbelievable because I know it was a mess where this community got it Monday and Friday between this hour and this hour, and this community only had it twice a month. And this is great. That's really opening it up to everybody. That's excellent, excellent.
It's very confusing. DOT during their last audit really encouraged us to expand this service.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Now, when do the residents find out about this and how?
Hopefully, we can get the contract back and finish this week. We did get it back. We had to make a small amendment to it and send it back out. So that amendment was done. And once we get that back, hopefully this week, we can flip the switch on this overnight, which is why I have these flyers ready. But once it gets back, we'll have the official brochures printed and I'll distribute those as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I just add something to that? I was also working with Heather. We have the news release ready to go out this week.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. More information, the better. Paul?
Amazing what a year does.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I have a couple things and we'll get to it.
Okay. Roy?
So do we have to act on anything to continue the rights to recovery? Do we have to take any action to use some of that money?
So,
Because I know we have a deadline at the end of March that we're going to be eligible for that.
yes, we could possibly run out of funding before the end of March, because the service is so well used. Currently, the Rights to Recovery Program is funded through a SAMHSA grant. We were awarded $250,000, and every bit of that money has been spent. There is an eligible funding source that DOT has told us we are allowed to use, which is our CARES funding. So if that's something that...
And can you just remind everybody what that is? That's COVID?
It's COVID funding. They want us to spend it because it's COVID funding.
And we have like 2 million plus
We do. We have 2 million plus in that pot right now.
So
just for transportation.
Okay, so this isn't something that we need to do right now.
Well,
to ensure the money.
Is it something we need to do right now to make sure we don't end the program at the end of March and then have to start it over?
I would say yes. I would. The sooner we move on this, the less gaps in service that we have. I think that we are going to run out of funding before the end of March.
Well,
With us, Phil, what do you think about how we would correct?
Is the funding like readily available? You just have to accept it?
Well,
I believe we have the funding, correct?
We have the
There's
funding.
that funding.
We already have it.
We have
Might be
We've already accepted
budget
it.
behind. Yeah.
So do you have to have something with the state that approves the use for this purpose? Or is that already
you
there?
already checked it.
We checked with the state. The state's approved CARES funding for it.
They should be able to just start using it.
Well, it might be a budget mod.
It
Depending on
depends.
what
If
they're
the
paying it
CARES
out of.
funding already covers that, and it's already been accepted, so it's already in your operating budget.
Yes, we have the CARES funding now.
The question might be the contractual obligation to the
That's
vendor.
what I'm asking, yeah. Is there an obligation to have to say to the state, this is how we want to use it, and then we have to have a contract that has to go to the state and get approved? Do we have to do that?
I don't think with this money and this CARES funding, I don't think we need to do that. They have reviewed it more on the back end and then authorized the transfer. I don't think there's an issue there. The res recovery contract though with vendor, is one I'm thinking. Will we need to amend that contract, or is that currently?
Yeah, so right now the contract is between the Department of Social Services and Catholic Charities, but it only covers the cost of the trips. So it's not covering their dispatcher. That's all something that Catholic Charities did so that we could finish spending the money. The vendor prior was Volunteer Transportation Center, and so Catholic Charities took that over and worked with Department of Social Services and said, hey, we'll help you guys spend the rest of this money. And so their staff time is not covered under that grant, and so we would need to figure out.
It needs a budget modification and the contract has to be amended.
We could do that though. Would need to be accepted at the legislature, or can we do that? I guess can we do that actively without an action of the legislature?
So Phil, what you missed is that, so this program, Rides to Recovery, has been really effective. And is, I think, important to keep going, but it was essentially a pilot that we got grant funding for. And it's helping people who are in recovery get to training jobs or to get to jobs. In some cases, it's helping them do other things as well. Predominantly, it's helping them stay in positions and helping them stay sober. We have some really intense documents reporting from people about how it's helped them. In some cases, basically saying, "This helped me save my life and get me back on track." So I think it's a program we should try to continue funding. And what Heather found is that we have this like $2 million in CARES money that is left just for transportation, and we can spend it out of that. We've already accepted the money. What we have to do to make sure that we can, and the program is going to run out of money as it is right now, the way it's funded now with Catholic Charities at the end of the month. So my question was, do we have to take an action right now to be able to use that any of that CARES money to make sure that this continues.
When does the program expire, funding for it expire?
It might end before the end of March.
Because it's basically a per ride amount of money, and,
And where's the CARES money residing right now? Is that something we claim, or do we already have it in our coffers?
We have it.
Budget line, or is it in an off-budget account, treasurer maintenance?
Don't know the answer to that, find out. I think it's,
That's budget.
I think so.
It's a DSS budget line?
No, CARES is transportation.
Transportation.
Only.
I will tell you, so the funding before
So
was
the
not.
short answer is
The funding
yes.
before was,
If you have a budget line in your budget for Rise to Recovery that's got to be paid out of your budget or somebody's budget,
yes,
and the money isn't there, yes, we got to do a budget mod to move it in there. We just got to figure out, where is that? Is that 2 million in a budget line or an off-budget account? Move it, have a resolution to move that to your department or DSS, wherever Rise to Recovery is paid out. So yeah, you'll need that. You need the budget line.
It doesn't amend the contract because
Yeah.
the current contract doesn't include certain things that like included.
so rather than doing that now, can we prepare for that and have, is everybody comfortable? Frank, can you be comfortable as minority leader to have this as a walk-on?
Well, either walk on, or you could have a special meeting just before the budget meeting to
So
have
we
it
get it
ready,
done
so we
before
can
Labor
vote on it, at the meeting. So that, you got to move on it now, because if you don't.
You don't want to break
at
the
the end of
service.
March, she's out of money,
Yeah.
and she's got to be able to move money. So,
They
yeah,
give us
I
a few
agree.
days to work out the mechanics of this with the contract and the money, and then have a resolution ready for you on next Thursday.
Okay.
I think that's great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's perfect. That's a good save, because that would have been very bad if all of a sudden, the end of March, they're out of money, and now we've got a break in
Well,
service.
especially because we have the money to use it for.
Yeah, it's right there. Okay,
Thank you for bringing that up, Rob.
that's good. That was a good save. Okay, anything else with transportation?
That's it for now.
Okay,
I had
okay. Questions?
It's got to be used for.
do we need a resolution for you to apply for the Shinneman grant that you want to apply for?
Only if Shinneman requires a resolution, otherwise you can apply. There's a grant in the
Well, and
approval process that you fill out, send to me, and if the Shinneman Foundation doesn't require, or any grantor doesn't require a resolution of the board showing prior support for it, you don't need to come to the legislature after you.
Shinneman does not.
They don't require. Where it would be, but it's, so a resolution right now to apply for that would simply be a resolution
For their
of
books.
support,
yeah,
which could be just a letter of support.
okay. Just making sure we didn't need it.
Any other questions?
I just want to say, and then I think everyone here knows it, but I want to again thank this leadership, this legislature, this committee for the support for transportation. We have seen such an incredible growth in that area in this county over the last 12 months. That's done an incredible job, and essentially what is an office of one. I do want to also call attention to Angel, who does a ton of assistance. She's my secretary and community development. But it just, there's so much work and so much time and attention here, and I just, again, want to give credit to Heather for all the work she's put in, and thank you guys for supporting her. We're seeing more change here than we've ever seen.
Right? Well, it's just, I think it's a good time to, I don't think it's a secret, Heather, that you're going to have a baby in October, right?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Nesting.
And with it being an office of one, we are looking at, Heather has gathered information about the position as, what is it called?
Mobility coordinator.
So it would be an assistant to her, a mobility coordinator, someone who would be able to be hired and be ready to go when she goes on her leave. But it's going to be useful as we continue to do the things that we're doing that are improving transportation to the county. So not bringing it forward now, but it's something we would like to bring forward in the next step, perhaps even by the end of to be ready for April. And I just want to make everybody aware of it now, because I think it's going to be useful that we have with the job description, and it would be paid for still through STOA, right? Or,
We actually have, so the DOT emailed me yesterday and said that.
we already have the money,
we have
don't
the
we?
money now.
Left over from mobility management from 3 previous years. So we already have like $79,000 sitting there. So,
Yeah, I would think that that's something also, if we needed additional grants, G&G could be looking at something additional.
I don't think we do because of the way the state and federal government funds mobility management.
That there'd be enough funds in there to actually,
It will be funded, so Portland County hired a mobility coordinator, and it's completely funded under 5311, 90%, just like my position.
okay.
So that position was also gonna go under the same grant that we get.
Well, I mean, when you look at these numbers, that OPT 12 increased 44% since they just revised the route, increased the ridership, and 14 increased 29%. It's demonstrated that if we can keep working this way, and now with the new tools that we have, we've got more data to analyze. I think it makes a lot of sense to continue growing that that department, especially since the state is willing to pay for it. And it's helpful. It's getting people to employment training and to their jobs.
And the more riders we have, the more money we get.
And when the decision was made to bring transportation in-house, we were anticipating that it would be 2 positions. So this is, I don't want to couch this as we need a second position because of an upcoming maternity leave. This was part of the plan all along, and we'd eventually get 2 as the program grew. There was increased demand.
Which that's already showing.
So congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Will we need a special car seat? For a bus?
Bus seat, yeah.
Ride around senior.
Yeah, the youngest person.
All righty, let's move right on then to Operation Oswego County. Austin.
Sure. So I'm going to hit a couple things that are both Operation Oswego County and IDA related, so there's some good timely news. So everyone should have gotten the February newsletter sent out a couple weeks ago. So if you didn't get that, please let me know. We'll make sure you're on the list going forward. Some other big items. So the industrial park expansion is going to be going to the townspeople site plan review this month. So once we kind of get that squared away, really we're getting into construction season. So we are also putting together resubmitting a Fast New York application through Empire State Development of a $10 million request that's going to take care of the shovel readiness of the site and some of the other infrastructure requirements that can't be done through federal grants, so mostly related to electrical and gas and infrastructure. So that'll be going in this month. We've had a great meeting with them in terms of their love the site. They will want to see it as one of the sites submitted in the near future. So
Niagara Mohawk on board?
they are on board. We've kind of had to drag them along a little bit, but when we kind of told them, hey, we're not asking you to do this, we're looking to get funding through the state to do it. We just need your help and support to design it. They kind of changed their a little bit. And then also, the pushing from the state and other things kind of helps on that as well. So back in February, we attended the New York State Economic Development Conference in Albany. We did training and networking for our new staff members, both for Nate and for Alex Fitzpatrick, which was a great event. We did that, I think it was February 12th. 2 new projects have come to two projects were considered at the IDA this past month. One of them was for Connect Care for a healthcare project here in the city of Oswego. That was approved at the IDA level. Another new one came in for the industrial park down in Phoenix, the existing industrial park, and that is ACLS, that is a printing manufacturing company and services. An initial resolution was approved for that project. They're looking to build. That is a company that's currently located in Liverpool and 10,000 square foot of lease space that's looking to almost double. They really can't do it where they are, so they are looking to build a new 18,000 square foot manufacturing facility in the industrial park down in Phoenix. They're looking to double their employment down there as well. So at this point, we only passed the initial resolution. We are waiting to see how that goes through site plan review down there before we consider anything further related to a public hearing for that project. The Oswego County Civic Facility Corporation will be considering at a meeting scheduled for March 19th now. I think we got everybody on board for the board for the date. Looking at the initial meeting, looking at tax-exempt bond financing related to that Connect Care project. So they, as a not-for-profit organization, they are eligible to apply for Texas done bond financing to build out that project. So that'll be coming up here in March. Other news at the IDA, Nick Canali was elected as the new chair of the IDA board, and Mark Greco was elected as the vice chair. Tim Stahl here in the room he was reaffirmed as the secretary treasurer of the IDA board. Other things that are going on at the IDA, the pilots were billed on March 1st. 76 pilot invoices went out. It's actually a drop of about 4 from last year, so we are probably the first year in a while that we've seen less pilots in a year than we had the year before. So we're trying to make sure that's for the projects that should be getting those. As Tim said before, Restore New York is now a live program as of last week in New York State, $60 million statewide. That's a very big drop from the year before. Before it was $200 million, so it's going to be a lot more competitive going forward. They've also had more stricter requirements for projects in smaller communities. They've come out with requirements saying that if it's a community above 100,000 people, they can get up to $4 million in one project. If it's between sort of 40,000 and 100,000, it could be $3 million. And if it's a community of under 40,000, they could get up to $2 million for one project. So just the state kind of clarifying and kind of constricting the program a little bit. And this is one of those that they've announced that right after the pro-housing community. So we'll have to see how that really plays into it. We're not sure yet. This will be kind of the first program that's come about after that announcement to see how that actually plays in. Other stuff we're doing right now. So we're actually working with Rachel's office and some of our other workforce and other economic development partners to develop a manufacturing summit that's going to be held the week of April 16th to 20th. We're actually doing our final planning on that today, so that date should be set, and then later this week that'll be announced. So that's going to be bringing all the manufacturing companies that are in Oswego County, or as many as we can possibly get, to an event to let them know of all the programs they may not know exist that can help them. So everything on the workforce side, to incentives at the state and federal levels, to looking at financing programs that are specific, and even National Grid and other sort of lesser known incentives that are out there. So just to try to help our manufacturing businesses as much as we can to stay in business and to grow here in Oswego County. Tim had mentioned a little bit, so the dates haven't been set in stone yet, but typically the CFA application has always opened in May, and it's sort of due in late July. We anticipate that schedule will continue, so that's when a lot of it's open to sort of private business, but also to not-for-profits, municipalities, and other entities that can apply for programs through that. So once we have more information and have the resource guide for that, of what that is, we'll make sure to circulate that to everyone to make sure that they're aware of what programs they can apply for. We talked about this a little bit at the last meeting. I know Frank had asked about it, but the IDA officially authorized me to put out an RFP on March 14th for developers to provide us proposals for the redevelopment of the 3-acre site at the Nestle site to develop a 30,000 square foot manufacturing facility. And then what our plan is that the proposal that is selected, the IDA will assign the $1.71 million in grants that they have for that project to that developer to do the project on the site. So we're moving forward there. That will probably, because it's going out March 14th, I think our tentative schedule right now is looking at all of those would be due by middle of May, and then we'd be making a selection hopefully by the end of May, and kind of getting that started in June. So trying to move forward there. A lot of things going on. The IDA meets this month on, I believe it is March 28th. Is their IDA meeting at 8:30 at our office, and then Operation Oswego County has a board meeting on Monday, March 18th at 3 o'clock over at the Lake Ontario event conference. A lot of stuff. Any questions?
No questions.
So that's a first.
I know.
All right. Really good report.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to try to bring...
Yesterday you had a comment about the board.
I can talk about
You should talk to Austin about it.
I'll break the ice.
Sure.
How many acres we got left in the original park?
There's probably, so right now we have 2 projects that are in play. I didn't talk about the other one, which is Fabsite Industries, because there's nothing being considered at the IDA level right now, but so we probably have about, after these 2 projects, less than 20 acres in the existing park. We have another 40-acre parcel, but it's not really considered part of the park. It doesn't have infrastructure built to it. It's a lot of wet property, so I don't really consider that as part of it. It would only be for a very unique project. So at one point for that 40 acres, we looked at potentially like a DEC training facility, because there wasn't much else you could do on a 40-acre lot that's got about 35 acres of wetland. But it would have been great for them.
I remember you saying something about that. I wondered, did anybody ever follow up on that?
They decided, so when that had happened originally, they actually elected to go build that project outside in Richland. So that was way back at that point when they decided to do that. Now they're doing the project in the Village of Cleveland.
So if we used that acreage in the next year, would we have the other plot of land ready to go?
That's what I am racing to do right now.
You were talking about infrastructure.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. And so even if we have to, if this infrastructure has to go into the industrial park in phases, if we have to go, say, 1,000 feet, you know, I mean, the plan is to go like 4,000 feet, but if we have to go 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet, that's what we'll have to do. But some of that's contingent on some funding that we've already applied for and the funding that we're going to be putting in for this month. But I think, you know, we got to have a strategy of, hey, if at a certain point we have to start putting things in so that way we can meet the needs. Yeah, we're talking to several different projects right now, both looking at the existing park and looking at the expanded park, and some of those projects could, if they decided to pull the trigger, could help us to prioritize our funding applications.
thank you.
Well, do you have a question?
I do.
All right, well, go ahead. Go to the.
What's happening in Cleveland?
Committee now.
Just the DEC training facility across the street from me.
Oh, yeah. So that's finally,
Well, I mean, from what everything I've heard is that they're still doing it, but you know,
I'd rather hear from you though.
I live across the street and I look over and I don't see anything happening. So I'm still, you know.
This is, yes, it's elementary school that they closed in Cleveland for 10 years ago or 8 years ago that the state ended up with in order to move the training facility for rangers, so ranger training
It would
facility.
be an ideal senior living facility. So
Would it be an ideal elementary school in my
Well, yeah, and with them closing AA Cole and AA Cole now not being on the sewer system that's not going to go in Constantia, pretty sad that.
It is.
I don't know if it's going to come to this committee at all, but during ARPA, we approved $25,000 for a restaurant in Cleveland. They ended up going under during COVID, and so that money came back to the pot, never was distributed. Because the Village of Cleveland had been working with Town of Constantia to do a sewer project for many years, and during COVID, the cost of actually going forward that expanded so tremendously that it's now on hold. They attempted to get a $10 million grant from EFC, and it was recently turned down. So the Village of Cleveland has about $87,000 worth of repairs that they had put on hold to the plant that they now have to do, and it's now going to come out of the local taxpayers projects. So if this committee, if it's up to this committee at all to consider maybe at least that $25,000 in ARPA money that didn't go to Cleveland going back to an infrastructure project to help maintain the Cleveland wastewater treatment plant, I know that we're going to try to make that ask to whichever committee it is going to deal with that internal ARPA. However we do that, I already did send it to Dave Turner, but and to leadership to make the ask. And the reason for that is that now, even though that project didn't go through in Constantia, they have the plans for it, and they might be able to downsize it and at least do some of it with the money that they have, because they did get some grant funding. But in order to have that re-engineering is going to take time. As all of us know, all these projects take way too long. The Cleveland plant is existing and has extra capacity for us not to keep that plant up or to just put it on the local taxpayers. after we thought that we were going to be in a much larger project with Constantia, I just would hope that we would consider that. I don't want to make that an official request, but I figured it should be on the record that I did ask on behalf of the village.
I'm trying to figure it out. It can't be, that 25 that came back to the external can't be transferred to the internal because we've already taken the maximum for the internal, 10 million. So there needs to be a way to.
So if we can think about it, I'm not asking for it today, but they have asked me, and I have all the information.
How much do we still have in the external?
That I don't know. It's on the website.
I didn't know we had anything left in the external other than stuff that hasn't been distributed.
Yeah, a lot of it is the remaining was for broadband wastewater projects. So we can get the data to find out.
Well, wouldn't this be a wastewater project?
This is a wastewater. Yeah, it is an infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so if they are able to go forward with some portion of the new, at least we are keeping up the plant in the meantime. This is for blowers and pump replacements and some things that were needed, but they waited to do them because they thought it was going to be part of the larger project.
So you're going to look into it,
and thank you for considering. Micron Transportation Committee, how it's going on with, I haven't heard anything since Dina left. She was chair.
Mm-hmm. I'm co-chairing that committee now.
Okay.
So
I can expect to get 8,000 emails?
Good. Yeah. We just met, so the steering committee just met last week, and Heather did make a report to the overall steering committee. They actually put out a report for 2023. I think it's just going through some final review of it, and that should be a public document anytime now. But yeah, so Heather's taken up the mantle on that.
Good, thank you.
One other thing I wanted to say, and I know you had a question, one other thing I wanted to say before, and that may generate some questions on its own, is that the IDA also, while we haven't seen a new solar project come to the IDA since April of last year in terms of consideration for financial incentives, we have over the past several months been taking a look at the IDA's solar project pilot deviation policy. And because we originally approved this in April of 2020, so it's been almost 4 years since we originally approved this. And we took a look at 16 other IDAs that are sort of what we consider our peer IDAs from Central New York and outside of that, but the ones we kind of look at is similar in size and sort of makeup. And we said, hey, what are they putting as a price for these? What are their policies? What kind of things do they have to sort of protect the communities, protect the counties, making sure that these projects are paying what they have. And we made several changes to our pilot deviation policy that were approved at our meeting in February. The first was a 40% increase in what the pilot payment would be in year one, which went from $5,000 per AC megawatt up to $7,000, and then that goes up 2% per year over 20 years. The other major change that we had is that we increased the non-refundable application fee from $500 to $10,000 for these projects. What we've been seeing is several projects will go through the process, come to the IDA, get approved, and then they just languish. They sit around as they try to sell this project to somebody else, and they don't really have a lot invested in this in the process. So this may get rid of some of the what we call the tire kickers in the process. Where that if they do ever close, that $9,500 of that will be credited towards a project fee at the end of it. But if they never close that project, they're not getting that $10,000 back. So we may see projects that aren't necessarily as developed not come to us until they are. And then a couple other things that we had done is that we required going forward that the project has provided proof to the IDA that they have discussed a host benefit community charge with the community that they are locating in. That is something that's similar to, at one point we added that they had to show proof that they've entered into a decommissioning fund with the local community. That was not part of original. We required that going forward. We've done this as well. We're requiring that they have shown proof that they if they haven't entered into an agreement, that they have discussed and have good faith effort to do that. And then the last thing that we have done is that the agency instituted that any approval granted by the agency will expire within two years from the date of approval if they have not moved forward to close the project. They can come to us and ask for an extension, but it's not automatically, it's not something that's out there perpetually. So this is something that we approve a project, and then within a year or two, the sentiment in that community changes. They don't want to see that project anymore, and they haven't gotten it. We just, that's it. If they want to come and get something, they got to come back again and go through the process all over again. So those are the changes that were made to that policy. I should have made that part of my initial things. Tim was reminding me to bring that up, but it's something that we've been looking at. And you know, I just also want to put out there that we may not ever see another solar project come to the IDA again, because the state is looking at changing, dramatically changing the way that these are looked at and assessed at the assessor level in terms of a discounted cash flow model, which could make it so that an IDA program is not attractive to them. So I think that this has sort of been in play a little while, and I think some of these solar projects have been sitting around waiting to see what happened. That's why we haven't been seeing them come to us. So some of this may have been done after the fact, but I think we want to make sure we're saying that, listen, if you want to do a project in our community and you want to come to the IDA and look at benefits, this is what it's going to cost you. This is the price to do a project here in Oswego County.
Just share a little bit what the host benefit community could look like.
Yeah, so host benefit community, so this is something that's happened in multiple other places around the state. So obviously the local community is the one that has to deal with these projects. It also impacts the school district, it impacts the county as a whole, but really the place that has to deal with this the most is the local community that it resides in. So we have seen local communities as part of, so it could be part of their planning process of site plan review, building permit process, say, hey, you want to do this here, you're also going to have to pay us a host benefit community charge. And that could be a one-time charge up front, it could be something that's done over time. It's sort of like, towns, they charge special district taxes. It could be something like that, but it's something that they negotiate directly with the project, and it could be outside of a pilot agreement, it could be outside of any other agreement. But we've seen that sort of in the last couple of years sort of take place in many communities around the state, and it's a way to try to make sure that community can realize some sort of a fee for sort of the impact of the quality of life that community is going to see from a project.
Generally speaking, they'll be getting a lot more property taxes as well.
Yeah, I mean, the way that we're doing this is everybody's going to get 40% more through this, and then we're also requiring them to have that discussion with that community to make sure that, and if the community says, hey, we're good with what we have, I don't expect many to do that, but if they say, hey, we're good with what we have, we don't need to do that, then that would work for us. But we're going to provide proof that they have discussed that and have come to some agreement with the town related to a host benefit charge.
Right?
Okay. Now I get all the scholars. Two things, which you just discussed, okay? So it's not one of my, in fact, it hasn't been any of my favorites, okay, solar program. Only if they're going into the sites that you're talking about, about a year and a half ago, where they're putting one just off the last guy's site there, the one side of the highway, which is a brownfield site. Brownfield site's fine, but it's not happening in brownfield sites no more. You look outside at Volney, coming in by Volney Field, fireman's station there. You got two of them there. Then you go down 6th, and before you hit 9, you got a huge one there. And that's all prime pasture land, prime hay land, prime land for, that we built. If we keep going with this in Oswego County, we're going to take out our ag sign and put up a solar sign. Why? Because it's going to bring in money. Well, what farmer isn't going to say, well, okay, you know what? Instead of fighting to get an ag district rebate, why don't I just, rent my land or lease my land to a solar farm and get a ton of money from them and get a tax break, so that you're going to feed right into what everybody in this room, there isn't a person in this room, I think, that says we love what, Albany is doing, okay? But you're feeding right into Albany when you say, let's get it, let's take the money. If it's a brownfield site, I got no problem with it. I've got one that's looking to go into on
Maple Ave, they looked at it, at the end of Maple Ave on the right-hand side, okay? I don't know, what was it, 50, 60 acres or something like that?
So there were two parcels they were looking at that was 90 acres, but the project would be on like 30% of that property.
Right, okay? That was the property that I wanted the inland port at, okay? But that's another prime area. It's not a brownfield site. And what you're gonna look at is you're gonna look at these solar panels. Morris Sabella would be having a fit about this, okay? Because that's all he whined about, was about the windmills are gonna be going up and how ugly they are. Well, the solar panels are the same thing, okay? And I just don't wanna see it taken away, because if I'm a farmer and I'm struggling, I'm gonna say, you know what? Way for me to get out of this is to turn it into a solar farm. Okay, so that's the only reason I'm against it. You're gonna feed into what Albany wants you to do. And in fact, even with, Mr. Greco joining us, I know that there still isn't anybody that loves what Albany wants us to do, okay? So those are the things, okay? Now, second part, this is started yesterday. Okay. Noel brought it back to me today, which I was gonna bring it up. The composition of the IDA board, okay? Now, why wouldn't there have been anything in the stipulations, okay? I'm a big proponent of, I do not like one-party rule anywhere. I don't care where it is, state, federal. If you tell me, well, your state does it, well, I'm not in favor of what the state does. Don't tell me that, because I'm not, okay? But what I am asking is, I'm asking, why wouldn't there have been a stipulation in there when it was made up, bylaws of some sort that said that there would be a member from the minority caucus on that board? I don't care if the minority...
But there's two.
No.
You have Tricia and you have Gary Tote. They're both.
They're not a member of the caucus.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Talking about the caucus, okay?
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about, okay? And I wouldn't care if it's the minority caucus is Republicans, okay? It's a fact of we represent all the people. We don't just represent certain people, okay? We represent all of them, and I'm asking that it be put in there that a member of the minority caucus, the minority leader appoints or put somebody on from the caucus to be on that committee, okay? Not the majority. We've seen it everywhere, and I'm going to go way off board here, but we've seen it everywhere. Bullying is not allowed anywhere in school districts, and it's frowned on, okay? And what you're doing, and that's the state does it, the federal government does it. They bully. Whoever's in charge says, this is what we're going to do. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice in it, okay? Well, it shouldn't be here. We are better than the state. I think we're better than the federal government, but we're not acting that way. Okay? And I'm just asking us to say, this is what we're going to do in the future. 2 years, 4 years, I may not be here. I don't care who's here. But as long as you put something in there that says that the minority caucus would choose one member to be on that committee, to be on that board. That's all I'm asking, okay? And I can't see a problem with that anywhere. If you guys came to me and I was the leader of 35 against 2, I'd say, yes, you're right, it should be that way, okay? We are better than what we're saying is the state does it to us, the federal government to us. The state tells us you got to do this for this with this money, that money. Do I agree with that? No, I don't. Okay, so that's all I'm asking you to do. Put something in there that the minority caucus, minority leaders, or gets to appoint somebody to be on that board, okay, or somebody from that caucus. That's all I'm asking. Okay. Thank you very much. That's it. That's my vote.
Right. Isn't the IDA is got strict rules that come down from the state as an authority. So how much of that has to do with what the composition of the board is that locally controlled?
So the board is appointed by the chairman of the legislature. That is how it's written as of now. There are requirements related to what are called independent and dependent board members. So you have to have a majority of what are considered independent board members. So that means those who are not of the legislative body who can.
You're only allowed
right.
X number of legislators on the body.
Correct. Yeah, and so there are some pretty strict requirements related to that. You're also supposed to meet some other requirements of having people from labor and other things like that. So it does sort of limit your ability, put some guardrails in terms of how you can structure a board like that, depending on the current composition plus adding new people. So
well, and right now we only have one legislator on the board. Is that correct?
You can have two.
But right now you only
right now
have
there's
one.
one.
Just Mark. So, and is there any vacancies right now?
There may be vacancies in the near future. There is not currently a vacancy, but there could be in the near future.
Voting on 3 next week.
Well, like I said,
I asked yesterday how many vacancies there were. There's 3. There's going to be another legislator, and then there's 2 independents, which is union leader, and I didn't know who the other person.
Well, there doesn't have to be 2 legislators, does there?
It's completely up to you if you know what you want to have. We just need to make sure we have.
It's up to the chairman.
Well, yes, you're right. You're up to the chairman. When I say you, I mean the chairman. But.
Yeah, but if the chairman were to recommend somebody that's outside the rules of the IDA, you couldn't appoint him.
Right. We run into issues where the Authority Budget Office and the New York State Comptroller would require us to remake our board.
I mean, my experience is that board has been the most bipartisan thing that we have going in the whole town. I mean, so I don't see that it makes any sense to try to change your rules.
How many
Even
people
if
are
you
on the
could.
board?
7.
7? How many are women?
Currently 1.
Okay.
That's Tricia.
Yeah. Paul?
What you just read off for the new rules, the IDA can have a copy of that. Just print it out, send it. See it.
Anybody else have any questions for us? Okay. Rachel, workforce development?
All right, I'm gonna pass around, I do have just updates. So what the chart is showing, this is our training that we have been doing since the beginning of our WIOA program year, which is July 1st, so the first 2 quarters. On the first page is all the programs and listing the schools and the specific programs of the scholarships that we have given out, and this is for our adults and our youth. So overall, we have provided funding for 77 individuals for training. And then on the back of that, the second chart is our youth work experience and our on-the-job trainings that we have done with local businesses. So you can see all of the businesses that are there. There are some of the businesses we've done quite a few with, being Catfighter Bank, Menor Ambulance, and Felix Scholler. We've done quite a few Felix Schollers because of their expansion, so we've been helping some of their incumbent workers, which we do require 5% wage increase if they are already employees of the business. But all the work experience are our youth, and some of them have been hired on by these businesses after their temporary coaching experience that they've had. So there's quite an array across industries, as you can see, and these are still proceeding forward this December. The second sheet is our Q1 WIOA performance measures I wanted to share with you all. This is what the state really essentially grades us on, so that we can see our WIOA funding coming through. So it is split up for our adult, dislocated worker, and youth funding streams.
You can see the goals in the first column. And then what our actual percentages that we hit in quarter one. I will say we're almost done with quarter 3 of our program, and we still have not gotten quarter 2. The state tends to be very behind on these numbers. But down the line for employment rates, earnings, our credential attainments, which really go echo back to the training that I had on the first table, and then our measurable skill gains for those that are in training. We met every measure except for the measurable skill gains, but we have received details of the individuals for the data entry that those correspond to, and our findings, whether there's some that business data entry, or with it being the first quarter, the folks are still in training. So there's not a measurable skill gain. So those are typically lower during the first quarter, but we should see those. I'm not going to say second quarter numbers because we just got up, but third quarter, those numbers should be up. The state has said that they are looking into, at the end of program year 23, when we close out in June, that local areas across the state that have met all of their performance measures, they're looking at incentive funding to come our way. We have, pre-me, we have met our measures year in and year out. Even during COVID, we met them and exceeded them. So that's the goal, and hopefully get some additional WIOA funding to come through. So I will continue to share these performance measures from our WIOA data entry as we get them. These numbers also are not reflecting only WIOA funded individuals, but we are enrolling into the data system also individuals that we're funding from the ARPA funds in our department, because then that way we can capture this data, and also it is allowing us the bottom measure that is on here for adult priority of service. We are mandated by the federal government to serve 50.1% of our adults as low income individuals. They want a 75%. You can see it as the goal for that adult priority of service, but 50.1% is what we are being held to. This is a new thing. You could see for our actual in quarter 1, we were at 48.4, which I believe it was 3 or 4 counties in the state are actually above the 50.1%. We are that next county. Some of it is the data entry system that is pulling in people that should not be in that measure. So we are looking to still enroll those that aren't necessarily funded into WIOA but are low income, and putting them in the system so that they're counting in that measure and because that will be part of getting the exception to the program here. But overall, staff's doing well with our WIOA funding. On other updates, we were chosen for the Youth Systems Field Academy by the U.S. Department of Labor, and myself, working with OCO, Youth Bureau, Shinneman, we have a 4-person team. We did go to DC last month with the other 9 cohorts, which I'll say we were the only rural area and the only county that did not have a major city, metropolitan area in it. We were there with Denver, Baltimore, Boston, Miami, Omaha, Pittsburgh, Detroit. I mean, we were the only little one, which I felt pretty proud of. But it was nice to hear from these other areas across the country that we see the same problems with our youth adults. Really, the outreach, not staying committed to training programs. Just the same things that we're seeing with youth is the same thing that's being felt across the country. But we do go to DC again in May. This program goes to the end of June, and what we are supposed to have at the end of it is a plan moving forward, an action plan to really help our youth. So what we're looking at here is identifying all the youth programs, which there are a lot across the county, but identifying gaps not only in the different pockets of the youth population that possibly aren't being served, but also the locations across the county. And then how can we involve a youth advisory committee that we want to have not only to meet with those of us in our small group with this youth systems build, but also having some youth involved in our Workforce Development Board Youth Council to have that youth voice, and how we can then take the gaps of the programs we're seeing and build it into career pathways and build out career pathways. And we're working on this on the youth front and the emerging workforce, but we see where building out career pathways is only going to help the population as a whole. Because as we get into community college programs and training programs, they're going to accept adults as well. So we're looking forward to where that is. And once we have our action plan from that, I will share that out in this committee as well. On the Micron front, Austin kind of filled in on the steering committee. And what we're looking at, I know that the 2023 annual report, I have it ready to send out to all of you once we're given the okay from the steering committee and to share out with the public. And I believe there is an event for the public to announce that is going to be planned as well. We are also convening the Future Ready Workforce Innovation Consortium with Micron. They're coming next month. I don't have a date for that yet, but that's for all the regional trainers and workforce groups to get together. That is the overarching consortium for the construction task force that I'm on at this point. The projects for that. There's a couple, including us, that are waiting on DSD grants from the state. They are right now putting out some questions and follow-up for those grants, so hopefully they'll be coming through by the end of this month or April. On Oswego bill for us and some other projects in Northern County. And there is now a New York State DOL representative that is focusing on CNY build and having that Syracuse build model, Oswego build that we want to do. There's Tompkins build that they're doing their Utica group, but then they're also looking at replicating this pre-apprenticeship for construction across the state. They're looking at all of Buffalo and really expanding this across. So I'm sitting on that. We have our first meeting for that, we believe, next week. And the other big thing we're working on is work keys, which I don't know, Roy, if you want to.
Well, I got to announce it at the last Ledge meeting that we have become the first work-ready community in New York State, not only New York State, but the whole Northeast. And it was interesting because after the, I know several of you were at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and they had a guest speaker from Micron, and I accidentally ran into him afterwards. It wasn't, no, it was truly an accident. We were in the bathroom together. I didn't talk to him. Well, we left, and he said, "Oh, you did a great job." And then I told him, do you know we're the first work-ready community? And he's like, "Yes, I do. In fact, we're going to become one of the businesses that is affiliated with it." I said, "Are you aware that you can create your own version of the assessments or some specific types of analysis of the assessments just for Micron, so that the assessors will help tell you?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely, we're totally on board with this." So I think, and we're working with Rachel and Shinmet Foundation and BOCES, and meeting with Eric Boozer and Rachel this afternoon to see what we can do to help veterans take advantage of the assessments and to use them better. And for June, what we're doing is I think we're trying to shoot for a June date to do a public announcement and do an event. For those of you that were around when we started the first anti-poverty task force, we did an event at City BOCES, and we had press there. We had about 200 people there. We made a big announcement, and we had a big kickoff of that. Well, we want to try to do the same thing with this work. Try to define what is a work-ready community. What is, what does it mean for businesses? What does it mean for people who want to take the assessments, especially for those who aren't going to college or or want to upgrade, if they're just high school grads or not even high school grads and want to prove what they already know or have learned in business or in life. The assessments can do that. So look forward for something like that coming up. We're hoping that could be almost kind of like a work fair situation where after we do an announcement, have Rachel, probably hopefully Austin speak. We also want to have a couple of students speak to having taken the the assessments and how it helped them, because we have some kids who are willing to do that, and then have basically a breakout session afterward, the table that says, here's the information about how this can help your business, how you can use it better. Here's a table for people who are interested in taking the assessments, and then we're hoping to have places where they can take them with proctors ready to go. Because we have been going so late with this committee, I just wanted to take a second to thank all of the department heads. They're killing it, that report to this committee. And that's why the meetings are going so long, because we've got so much good stuff to report. That's one of the most exciting committees to be on now because of that. Especially when human services committee is not always so positive, having to work with the SS, and which is often difficult. But I would also ask that maybe we consider rotating the departments each week so that different ones report in different orders, so that Rachel doesn't wait up and get laughed.
But we always like to save the best for them. I don't have any issue with that, and obviously if there's any department heads that have another meeting that they have to go to, if they let me know ahead of time, I certainly would change it around so you guys can get out of here.
Just two other updates. I don't think you mentioned that Rachel's been appointed by the Oswego president, and also to a strategic planning subcommittee, basically focusing on what the school can do better to prepare its students for the real world workforce. So she's going to be that bridge. Also wanted to congratulate Rachel. She received an award last week from the Chambers of Commerce, winning the Nancy Primo Women of Distinction Award. We're very fortunate to have Rachel engaged.
Right.
Okay, I looking at the chart, okay, I just want to make sure that I get the correct information.
Yep.
Like in a high school teacher supposed don't assume something because you know what that does, okay? So second quarter employment rate. So if I subtract that from 100, that tells me what our unemployment is, correct?
No.
Okay, that's why it says, I don't assume that. What is it? What is our unemployment rate? What was our unemployment rate for the second and fourth quarter? You have that available.
So the quarters are not a specific quarter of the year. So what it is once a customer of ours becomes inactive in our system, so it's 90 days after we've had contact with them, they exit our system. Then it goes to the second quarter after that exit from our system for that employment rate. So out of 100% of those customers that exited that quarter, 65.5% is the goal of that to be employed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very convoluted percentage.
Yes.
I have a chart that with these second quarter and fourth quarter that it looks like a big V of what populations you're actually counting. I can share that if you'd like.
Some point. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions or concerns or comments relevant to this committee?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Okay, thank you once again, guys. Great job.